you don't even need a employer to sponsor you like other traditional job visas. So now you can be more flexible, get a visa, move to China, and see what it works for you.
People in China are saying, we have really highly qualified grads and also really high rates of youth unemployment. Loads of people are out of work. So why aren't you giving Chinese people jobs? Hello, it's Hannah here. Welcome to What in the World, your podcast for the stories that get people talking from the BBC World Service. If you're a science or tech grad, would you move to China for work? Because right now, China wants you. It's just launched the new K visa for foreigners with STEM qualifications. That's science, tech, engineering and maths. But people in China are not happy about this because millions there are unemployed. So why is China trying to attract foreign talent? And what will these grads get in return? Well, back in the studio with me is Mengcheng Zhang from the BBC's Global China Unit to help unpack this. Hey, welcome back.
Hi, Hannah. So glad to be back.
So what do we know about this K visa? It's already getting a lot of attention in China.
Yeah, definitely has gained traction both domestically in China and a lot of international media has reported it. And so it was first announced in August this year and it took effect October 1st this year. So far, we don't have the statistics as in how many people have applied and we are waiting to see more details to come out.
But do we know why the Chinese government brought this in? Why do they want foreign scientists?
Yeah, so officially China's response is we want more international talents, international collaborations. We want to open the door to more talents globally so we can collaborate together to make the technology advance both in China and for the world. But obviously under the current international situations, we know the competitions between China and the US and a lot of other countries, especially in technology field like AI, has been heated. So I think that's a good sign that China is really wanting to get in more talents globally.
I wonder how popular these K visas are going to be with people around the world, because we have talked on the podcast before about work culture in China, and it's known for the 996, which I think is working from 9 a.m. till 9 p.m. 6 days a week. It sounds like a hell of a long day, a hell of a long week.
I know,
Do you think that foreigners will want to come and work in conditions like that?
Yeah. I mean, there's not just 996. Another term I'm going to, hopefully don't scare you, it's about 007. It's not the movie 007.
Oh, 007.
Yeah, in some extreme case, people are jokingly or maybe in reality are working 12 hours a day and 7 days a week. So that could be some really extreme working scenarios. I'm not saying everyone's working that crazy hours, but in reality, a lot of new grads and people working tech are still doing 996 pretty often. So we will see how people are getting used to it.
Is it foreigners as well as Chinese people who are working those long hours?
Yeah, so I've talked to people from different countries who work in China, and surprisingly, sometimes it does affect them as well. So yeah, we usually think people in like Chinese domestic companies are more used to this 996 culture, but actually I think a lot of companies from abroad, they have opening offices in China, and sometimes inevitably because they work with companies in China, they have to adapt. So I've talked to this English guy named Jack. He's currently working in China. Here's what he told me.
There was definitely a period where the working hours were really tough for me. By the time I was in games design in the last 6 months, I was working the typical, like 12-hour days, 6 days a week, and then voluntarily coming in on Sunday because although it was illegal to not have one day off, you still saw people in the office on Sunday because there was just so much work to get done that you were effectively, peer pressured into trying to get ahead of the next week or trying to finish off that week's work by spending time in the office on Sunday as well. But that wasn't something they could enforce, obviously.
So apart from putting in the hours, what are these grads going to do? What kind of jobs might they be doing? And what are they going to get from this visa?
I think one thing people from abroad coming to China potentially with this visa is that they can get more access to Chinese companies and not just the cultural, but how people are grinding and working. And this type of technology exchange, I think, would be really beneficial. And on the other hand, I think usually in the past, when people from different countries want to work in China, they have to jump through a lot of hoops. Like people in many other countries, the application process can be complicated sometimes. But with the new K visa, I think they simplify. We're still yet to see what exactly requirements will be for the K visa. But supposedly you will have a more easier way to apply for it, and you will probably get a longer stay and multiple entrants, and you don't even need a employer to sponsor you like other traditional job visas in China. You have to get a job offer first and come work. So now you can be more flexible, get a visa, move to China, and see what it works for you.
It does sound quite appealing, but there's also been a huge backlash against this visa. Particularly, a lot of people in China are saying, we have really highly qualified grads and also really high rates of youth unemployment. Loads of people are out of work. So why aren't you giving Chinese people jobs? Why are you trying to get foreign talent instead?
Yeah, I've definitely seen a lot of worrying discussions like that. And a lot of them are actually holding a very high degree, like bachelor degree, master degree, even PhD degrees. So they are like really worried about how could they find a job. Because right now, the competition in China, even just within the Chinese students, have really competitive. So, I mean, within bringing the new blood, the foreign talents are definitely raising people's concern.
I want to find out a bit more about what life is like for a young person in China. Why is unemployment so high?
I think the latest stats from China, between 16 to 24 people out of school, the unemployment rate, the youth unemployment rate is almost 18%. So you can see that's almost more than 10 million people between this age out of school can't find a job. And that's a lot of people if you're talking about like tens of millions young people recently out of school, has a lot of knowledge and passion, want to build a new life. But the reality is it is really difficult. I mean, ever since the pandemic, the China economy has been coming slower and slower. Of course, after the pandemic's passed, people's life back to normal. It has been picked up a little bit, but then we've seen the China-US trade wars and all the international news hitting the headlines, and that definitely hits China's economy as well. Because they have got a lot of education and they are maybe the first generation of grad students from their family, so the expectations from their parents, from their family are really high. So it's not just that they wanted to make the money, they also want to look good in front of their families. So sometimes they do have to be creative, and usually they go to a library or a cafe just to pretend they're working. That's one of the things we're seeing. So their parents wouldn't be too worried about why are you still unemployed. It almost become a stigma if you are unemployed.
Yeah. That, I mean, it's a lot of pressure for young people to be under. And I read that people were going into these fake offices. There are these fake offices where you can go and actually pay to hire out office space to make it look like you're in work. And people use it for all kinds of things, whether it is like doing job applications, because finding a job is almost as much work as actually being in a job.
It is.
Isn't it?
It's a full-time job to find a full-time job.
It totally is. So with all of this unemployment, why is China recruiting from outside the country? Is there a shortage of the specific skills it's after within China?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, because I think a lot of people, because we still don't know the stats and the details of the application process, a lot of people think it's a strategy, almost like a PR strategy to show how opening China is and how much they want for talents. In reality, so first of all, we don't know how many people will apply. And secondly, we don't know how they will be part of the workforce, because the language differences and the cultural differences, we don't actually know how much they will bring to the table.
The timing of this announcement is very interesting because the US has just talked about making changes to its H-1B visa, which they have recently said you're going to need to pay, $100,000 to get this visa. So it's a lot more expensive, and that's going to be prohibitive for a lot of grads. So do you think the timing of that announcement has influenced China's own announcement?
So I think when China announced in August, we already know that the plan to take effect will be on August 1st. And it was a very coincidental event that the U.S. at the end of September announced that it will skyrocket the fee, which is almost impossible for any new people to apply for that visa. And we're still yet to see more about what the H-1B visa's new rule will be like. But it was a really interesting contrast when the two countries are making headline with their new visa, but on totally different end of the spectrum. So I talked to a Chinese national who is on H-1B visa and is working in tech industry in the U.S. By the end of September, she was going to get married. They booked the venues. They were going to have the wedding in China, so she took some time off. But just before the wedding started, they saw the news, so she had to rush back to the U.S. just in case she can't go back anymore. So in that case, I think we've seen a lot of people calling them H-1B refugees, and specifically the Chinese H-1B visa holders. They are really thinking about whether U.S. is the true home for them.
What are some of the big nationalities that you think might be attracted to move to China with the K visa?
So I think, yeah, with the geographic reason, I think any country near China could be most beneficial to this, like people from Malaysia, from India, and from Pakistan, because we're already seeing a lot of Indian students and Pakistan students in China. And so I think they will be interested in coming in, given that if they already know the culture, they already know the language. I think still like language part is a very big challenge for people from the US or UK or any parts of the world. If they don't speak Chinese, I think it will still be very challenging. And of course, like for country like Malaysia or people Singapore, if they speak Chinese, that will be a huge advantage and could be really beneficial.
Wing Chen, thank you so much.
Thank you, Hannah.
That's it for today. I'm Hannah. This is What in the World from the BBC World Service. And you can find us right here on the BBC World Service YouTube channel 5 days a week. 2 of those episodes are in video. So come say hi, watch us chatting away. And if you've got thoughts about what we've talked about today, the K visa, or any other topics, you can drop us a comment or get in touch with us on Instagram at BBC What in the World. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.